The hospital room was unnervingly quiet. No machines, no beeping monitors, no bustling nurses. Just the soft hum of fluorescent lights overhead and the sound of fabric twisting in my hands. I sat on the edge of the bed, wearing a paper-thin gown that didn't warm me, staring at the floor like it might open up and swallow me whole. My body felt like a hollow shell, emptied, scraped clean from the inside out. I had given birth to silence. There had been no cries, no first breath. Just a flat line and a nurse whispering condolences I couldn't process. Then came my mother. I heard her heels before I saw her. Sharp, deliberate clicks against the sterile tile, like she was walking into a business meeting. She didn't sit. She didn't ask if I was okay. Her perfume, something expensive and floral, was suffocating. She leaned in close, her shadow swallowing what little light reached me. I hoped, just for a second, that maybe she'd hold me. Maybe she'd pull me into her arms like when I was a child with skinned knees or stomach flu. Maybe I could pretend, just for a breath, that I wasn't completely alone in this. But she didn't embrace me. Instead, her lips brushed against my ear, and what she said slid into me like a knife. At least one useless creature knew when to give up. I froze. I didn't cry. My throat clenched, refusing to let out a single sound. My fingers dug into the blanket, knuckles white, fabric twisting between my fists. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't look anywhere. The air was too thick, like it had been poisoned. She stood up, adjusted her coat like she had delivered some necessary truth, and turned her back on me. That was her way. Always make the wound sharp, then walk away before you have to watch it bleed. Behind her, my father stood like a statue. No comfort in his eyes, just a twisted grimace of disappointment. His arms crossed, he muttered under his breath, "That womb should have closed years ago," as if my body had failed him personally. No one held my hand. No one said they were sorry. No one called the baby by his name. I sat there, crushed between the weight of my own grief and the venom of the people who were supposed to love me. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just disappeared deeper into myself. And still, the tears never came, because somehow, even in that moment, freshly empty, freshly broken, I understood something chilling. This wasn't a loss to them. It was an inconvenience. An embarrassment. A failed headline in their perfect suburban narrative. And if they could bury my pain with a single sentence, then I knew, deep down, they'd already buried me long before the baby ever died. I was the firstborn of the Langley family, Emma, the one who was supposed to set the standard. For a while I did. Straight A's, perfect attendance, polite smiles at every charity gala. But that was before everything fell apart. Before I started forgetting how to breathe. Before the days blurred into gray. After the breakdown, they stopped calling me gifted. They started calling me difficult. Or worse, nothing at all. My mother, Sandra, clung to appearances like lifelines. Cold, calculated, always in control. She wore her pearls like armor and smiled only when cameras were around. My father, Robert, was the face of Langley Enterprises, a man who demanded perfection and considered my mental health an embarrassment he couldn't fix or hide. And then there was Avery, my younger sister, 17 and golden. Prom queen material, cheer captain, straight teeth, and straighter ambition. She was everything I used to be, only shinier. Together, they made up the perfect suburban family. Well-dressed, well-spoken, well-respected. People saw us and smiled. No one ever looked closely enough to notice the rot under the polish. And if they did, they only saw me. The smudge on their spotless image. The cautionary tale. The disappointment. After the loss of my baby, I returned to the house I once called home, but it felt less like a sanctuary and more like a cage. I wasn't ready to live on my own yet. Not with my savings drained by hospital bills and therapy sessions that barely touched the numbness inside me. So I came back to my parents' sprawling suburban mansion, where every polished surface and perfect corner seemed to mock the chaos I felt within. Dinner was a battleground. My mother insisted we eat together, the way families were supposed to. But the table wasn't a place for comfort. It was a minefield. My parents never mentioned the baby. It was as if my loss was a dirty secret, one to be ignored and erased. When I dared to bring it up, my father would shoot me a cold look, warning me not to make a scene. And my mother, with her sharp eyes, would remind me that grief was a luxury I couldn't afford. The most painful moments were when Avery, my sister, joined in. She was 17 and already the golden child, the one who never faltered, never disappointed. Once, during a particularly tense dinner, she sneered, "You couldn't even keep the baby alive. What makes you think you can hold on to anything else?" The whole table burst into laughter, the sound like knives cutting through my heart. I sat there, the weight of their cruelty pressing down, my hands clutching the fraying edge of my chair, swallowing their poison in silence. Inside, I felt like a ghost, a hollow shell wandering through the home I grew up in. They didn't see me anymore. They saw only the failure, the burden that threatened to tarnish their spotless image. Every insult, every sneer was etched into my mind, yet I never responded. I was gaslit into believing that the fault was mine. My weakness, my inability to be the perfect daughter they wanted, was to blame for everything. The silence I wore was a mask, a shield against a world that had turned cruel and cold. But beneath that quiet, something was stirring, a slow-burning resolve, forged from the bitterness of their rejection and the sting of their words. One evening, as I passed by the study, I overheard my father on a phone call, his voice low and triumphant. He was bragging about moving funds through offshore accounts, to avoid taxes, casually naming fake companies and coded transfers. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Their perfect family image was a lie, a carefully constructed facade built on corruption and deceit. That night, I lay awake, the pieces falling into place. If they could betray the truth so easily, if they hid behind their wealth and influence, maybe I could find a way to fight back. The next morning, I began my silent campaign. I started recording conversations when I was alone with my father, capturing his careless boasts. I took pictures of documents left unattended, bank statements, contracts with forged signatures. I learned to navigate his computer, downloading files and emails that revealed more than I ever expected. Among the evidence, I found something even more damning. My father had been laundering money through accounts registered in Avery's name, the same Avery who mocked me mercilessly. My mother's signature was on dozens of questionable papers, implicating her in illegal financial schemes. They were preparing to apply for a large government grant, using falsified records to make their business appear more legitimate. It was a web of lies, and I held the key to unraveling it all. I copied everything onto a small USB drive and sent a copy to a trusted, anonymous lawyer who promised discretion and action. I wasn't ready to strike yet. I waited, gathering strength and planning the moment when I would bring their world crashing down. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my voice and my dignity. They had tried to bury me beneath their contempt and cruelty, but I was growing stronger in the shadows. Each day I played my part, quiet, compliant, the defeated daughter everyone expected me to be. Their guard dropped as they reveled in their illusions of control, but I was preparing for a reckoning they never saw coming, a reckoning that would expose the rot beneath their polished veneer and finally free me from the chains they had wrapped around my heart. The night of Avery's scholarship celebration shimmered with everything my parents had always worshipped: status, applause, image. The Langley estate had never looked so polished. Strings of gold lights draped across manicured hedges, tables lined with champagne glasses, smiling guests in cocktail attire murmuring praises about the golden child and the strength of a good family. From the corner of the garden where I stood half hidden in the shadows, it all looked like a stage play. A lie, dressed in sequins. Inside, the ballroom buzzed. Reporters from the local station were setting up near the podium. My mother wore a floor-length gown, beaming like she'd just been crowned queen of a country she'd built herself. My father's laughter boomed through the room, his arms slung around Avery as if she were some kind of trophy. She basked in it, her curls perfectly in place, her gown catching the light with every movement. She knew tonight was hers. I watched, quiet, composed. The USB in my pocket felt heavier than gold. This wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. cold and precise. I'd spent weeks preparing for this, gathering every receipt, every fake signature, every shred of the empire they thought was untouchable. I'd waited for this exact moment, not out of pettiness, but justice, and because they had paraded their perfection for so long, they'd started to believe in it themselves. It was time to show them the truth. My mother raised her glass first, her voice sweet and false as syrup. "To Avery," she said, smiling with her teeth. "Proof that with strong roots and the right values, greatness always blooms." The room clapped politely. She looked right past me, as if I wasn't even standing there. Then came my father, ever the showman. He adjusted his tie and stepped forward with his glass raised. "Not all seeds grow into something worth keeping," he said with a chuckle. "But thankfully, some of us get it right." His eyes landed on me, smug and cruel. "Mistakes happen, but they don't define us. They fade." Laughter rippled through the crowd. And that was when I walked to the stage. The click of my heels silenced the room faster than any speech. People turned to look, confused. My father's smile faltered. My mother's expression tightened. Avery narrowed her eyes like she wasn't sure whether to roll them or smile for the cameras. I reached the podium, plugged in the USB, and turned toward the screen behind me. The first document appeared. A bank transfer showing tens of thousands of dollars moved into a fake education account under Avery's name. Then more. Falsified grant applications, Sandra's signature on government forms, emails between Robert and shell companies. And finally, a short audio clip. Robert's voice laughing. "If we route it through Avery's name, no one's going to flag it. She's squeaky clean." Gasps, audible confusion. A few guests raised their phones, filming. I took a breath. Not shaky, not afraid. "Everyone thinks I'm the failure of this family," I said, my voice echoing in the now silent room. "The broken one. The disappointment. But I'm the only one here who hasn't committed a crime." My mother stepped forward, voice sharp. "Turn that off. This is a private family matter." "No, Mother," I said quietly. "This is very public now." My father lunged toward the podium, but a guest intercepted him, demanding answers. The questions started to fly. "Are these real? Is that your voice? How long has this been going on?" The police arrived minutes later. I had timed everything, sent the final packet to the authorities that afternoon. When the red and blue lights lit up the windows, I didn't flinch. The officers walked in with firm expressions, calling out names: Robert Langley, Sandra Langley, Avery Langley. My father was livid, red-faced, and roaring. "This is a setup. She's trying to ruin us," my mother cried, more from the shame than the guilt. "Please, these documents are out of context. You don't understand. She's unstable. She lost her baby. She's not well." But no one was listening anymore. Avery crumbled completely when her name was read out loud. "I didn't know. I didn't sign anything. This is my scholarship." Her voice cracked, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. As they were led out of the hall in handcuffs, I stood still. Some people stared at me in disbelief. Others looked down awkward, ashamed of every time they'd laughed at my expense or whispered that I was the troubled one. And for the first time in years, I wasn't ashamed. In the weeks that followed, the news spread like wildfire. Langley family fraud scandal made headlines. My father's company collapsed. My mother lost her board positions, her charity affiliations. Avery's scholarship was revoked, and she faced investigation for knowingly benefiting from fraudulent funds. And me? I left. One suitcase, one small donation fund quietly started by a kind stranger who heard my story and believed it. I didn't stay to watch them fall apart. That part was already done. I rented a small apartment across town, found a job at a nonprofit that didn't care who my parents were. Most days, it's quiet. Some nights, I still wake up missing the sound I never got to hear. My baby's first cry. That grief hasn't gone away. Maybe it never will. But I'm not hollow anymore. I'm not voiceless. They called me the dead branch on the family tree, the part that should have been cut off. But they forgot something important. Rot spreads from the inside. It eats away until the whole tree falls. I wasn't the rot. I was the seed buried beneath it. And now, I've begun to grow.